All right, everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's great to have you here, to see you, to hear you. Welcome to another edition of the Continual Search meetings. It's great to have you here. We're going to continue having, a discussion and talking about some stuff today. And I thought one thing would be kind of good because you all know that what the process that's happening for me is why I'm sharing all of this stuff. And I'm in the process also of redoing my website. So I'm redoing my website. So I'm dedicating one page to non-duality. So today I might go back and switch it around a little bit, but I kind of wrote something, so I thought it might be a really good place for a kickoff for a conversation. So I'm going to share that. We're going to read through that, and then we'll start talking, and then we'll see. Sound good, everybody? Hello, Tiffany. Good to see you. Okay, let me share this with you all. Just gonna, I think I can do that. Okay. All right. This is a new page on my site, and I kind of wrote about my process here. So I just want to read this. It might be a really good thing to start off with. So here we go. Just read it as it's not finished yet, but I even published it, but whatever. All right, let's all take a couple of deep breaths before we start. Okay. All right, here we go. I would think that just like you, I've been on a spiritual path for many years. I was pulled by this form, by this from the age of around 5. This path has included many, many philosophies, practices, and ideas, from Shakespeare to A Course in Miracles, from psychic perception to angelic encounters, and much more in between. And I just didn't even go into that because there's a lot more that I've studied and that I've practiced. And all of these somehow brought on something utterly new yet glaringly familiar to me. I've loved and valued each and every step along the path, but also along the way, I've also noticed that something else was being pointed to. Let me just stop right there. So I want to say this clearly. You know, the whole time that I have been studying and meditating and practicing and learning and applying all this stuff in my life, there always seemed to be like this is all pointing to something. So I think that some of you can kind of relate to that. So throughout all my study and teaching, I always had this niggling feeling that there was something else going on. But as they say, we can become our own worst enemy and not able to actually see it. For me, my spiritual life was the most important thing in my life. I knew that it was the key to something, and this is really true. But truly, I didn't ever really know what that something was. Was it peace? Was it happiness? Was it success? Was it me? Was it truth? So it was like, it felt good, it felt great, but there was always this thing in the back like, well, what is this? What is this thing that's yearning, that's calling me? I'm not exactly sure. And so as I went along, I just kept going, yeah, this feels right. This feels good. This feels right. All of this seems to make sense, seems to resonate with me, but I wasn't exactly sure what it was. The Course in Miracles says if one goal is peace. And so, of course, peace is part of it. But was peace the same as truth? Was happiness the same? Was success? So there was always kind of that in there. So starting around 2017, this is when I can kind of trace it back to, something started to shift. I saw and felt within me, and I began to see it so clearly with those that I worked with, this shifting thing. I started to see it exactly with them. I started feeling it with me. And just so you know, and since most of you have been here before, This process and what we talk about here can be a little bit difficult in words, but I just wrote here just a few things here that are kind of pointers. So I began to see the truth about how everything was truly a story. The past, the future, even to a certain extent, the present moment, all of our fears, our aspirations, our difficulties, our joys, our struggles, our successes, our everything is a story. And that all these stories are based on the meanings that we're giving to them. And all meaning is relative. So we know from the Course in Miracles, the second lesson, which I've said a million times, is one of my favorite lessons, is that we're giving everything the meaning it has for us. And I've known this for 40 years, 35 years. And suddenly that started to dawn on me in a whole different way. And I was like, oh my gosh, wait a second. You know what? That meaning is creating the story, and the story, why is that? So this has all started to, shift and change inside of me. Also, I really began to see the truth of stopping the search and all that entailed. And that around that time was a time when I was like, I was really in this place of going, I'm not doing anything. No, no, stopping. And I started to see what that was doing, and how that was, kind of bubbling up or settling into me, just not doing anything. We know from the Course in Miracles, I need do nothing. So, but it's the stopping the search, stopping the trying. And that section, I mean, that kind of period was quite a bit. It's not like I didn't do my responsibilities, I didn't my classes, I didn't do whatever, but there was that whole feeling of getting somewhere or pushing or anything like that. It just like, I just stopped it all. And that was a big part, I believe, of why this all kind of started happening for me. I began to see how I and everyone else were just our own little universes doing the best we can to run a race that was utterly false. I've said this before and I'll say it again. It's like a whole bunch of people in their own little worlds. If there's 38 billion people, there's 38 billion universes smashing up against each other, and see all these things. And especially if you've been around me for a while, these are things that I've talked about. But I started to be like, this means there's something else happening here. I began to see clearly how everything was based on separation. Everything is based on separation, separation from others, separation from the world, separation from ourselves, and most importantly, separation from life itself. This kind of speaks to, in the Course of Miracles, is to accept the atonement for yourself, that your will and God's is one, your will and life's is one. I started to really get that on another level. I got it before, but something started happening. I also began to see clearly that the common thread was the character. And this was huge. When I started to get this was when I was like, oh shit. Or as we call it, the separated, or I call it now the separated self. So much of all this stuff had to do with organizing the Max character, you making sure he gets more this or less this or better this or no more that. And everything above that I just said all comes back to the character. And I could see it with all my students too. I'm like, ah, and this is even beyond the story. The story kind of creates the character, but the character of the me. And I was like, oh boy, this is big, because it's about the character. So of course, just keep reading here. Of course, for my more than 45 years of studying, practicing, and guiding others, because I started my search when I was, like 8 years old. I read my first like spiritual book when I was like 9 years old. And guiding others, I literally, I understood all of this that I just told you before. But what began to happen was, it was so different than understanding or getting it. Because I got it, I understood it, I understood all this stuff. It was almost as if, and this is exactly what the feeling was, it was as if the character kind of stepped away. And when that happened, and it wasn't conscious, which I'll say in a second, it was not conscious that it happened. All of a sudden it was like, oh, everything's changed because this character, and I'm going to use an analogy in a second, it started to just go away, and it continues to kind of just melt away. Me and this and whatever it is started to melt away, and then everything started to change. And then, but I also saw, as I've told you all, everything changed and nothing changed at all. Nothing on the outside changed, but everything changed. So what was and is different than trying to get it or trying to consciously remove the I didn't do that. It just started happening. So I used this analogy with a student the other day. You might have heard it. I'm not sure if I said it. You know those old cartoons with the gas tank, and there literally was a gas tank that was glass, and then they would put the gas in and you'd see the gas go those old 1930s. That's exactly what it feels like for me. I feel like the me has just like, it's just gone. So there's not really a me. There is a me, but there's not a me. It's very hard to describe, but that's just going away. That's just going away. It's as if this character that I played was just melting away. And in that has come something that I just can't explain, like I said. But I will say it fills me. The thing about it's like the nothingness is the everything. It's just the incredulousness of it all is amazing. And it's so obvious and it's so freeing and it's so amazing. And now, like I always say, now that this is all happening, I can't not see it anymore. I mean, listen, today I was out and I was like, I was seeing it all over the place. I was like, whoa, I'm seeing it all over the place in people's discussions, in how people were dealing with things, how I was relating or not relating or being. I had an MRI today, and that was a very interesting thing because I had an MRI. You know, MRI, you go in the tube and it goes, and I had a real incredible experience in that MRI tube today. And first I was like, okay, we're gonna do this. And I know it's like, okay, I'm just gonna chill out. As I was in there, something happened. I can't even explain it. Suddenly I was just at one with this MRI machine. I was like, it wasn't me anymore. And it felt so incredible. It felt so incredible. These things keep happening and I can't explain it. You're just gone. I was gone. I was just gone. And that was a really, really cool experience. And the woman gets me out and I'm like, oh my God, that was amazing. She's like, what? I'm like, that was incredible. And she's like, are you okay? I'm like, I am. I go, you probably get people that freak out in that thing. She goes, every day, all the time. I'm like, oh no, that was incredible. And she's like, that's good, whatever. But anyway, it was just another little example. I keep seeing, I can't not see it anymore. And I can't control, and this is, there's no control over what's going on here. It's just crazy. So let me just read this, the rest of it. I'm really not sure how to label this, and I really wasn't sure how to label what's been going on with me. And then I started to stumble on, it's not like I didn't know the term non-duality, but then I was like, oh, maybe this comes under that non-duality thing. But at the same time, strangely enough, I can't even feel I feel like that's just another label to put on it. It's just what's happening. It's just what's happening. It doesn't even matter. But I'm just going to use that label from right now until I'm not going to use it anymore. So now everything that I facilitate, and some of you are in some of my other classes or groups, I can't not include any of this anymore. It has to be, like I say here, how I facilitate A Course in Miracles groups to my live streams, to my YouTube videos, they all have an element of this now, because I can't not include this. It's just the way it is. Anyway, so let me just say this, and I think Tiffany knows about this, but because we saw it the other day. As it turns out, a few months ago, I stumbled on a YouTube video of this awesome Irish guy facilitating a group conversation about non-duality. I'm like, well, watch that guy. And I was like, oh, fuck. Oh, my God. It was like coming home. He was articulating almost everything that I was experiencing. And I was like, whoa, okay. This is it. This is good. So that's what's really been happening with me. And the more that I'm you know, it's like but it has nothing to do with me. So it's not like I'm working it. That's I mean, not the weird part, but to describe it to you, just as things going along, I'm just letting it flow, letting it flow. And now let me say this, then we're going to open up to you all. You've all heard, let it go with the flow, let go, let God. That is not what is happening to me. But at the same time, that's what's happening. So hard to explain because I'm not consciously going, you need to keep letting go into this. That's not what I'm doing. But I am doing that. Remember, it's everything and nothing at the same time. So I'm doing that, but I'm not really doing that at all, at all. So that's what this conversation and these continual search things. I mean, I titled this, and I'm going to stop this share because that's it. I titled this continual search because the separated self has to keep searching, keep searching, keep searching all the time, all the time, all the time. And I'm like, and that's why I did. Tiffany says, I've been watching him since yesterday. Oh, he's so sweet. He's such a great guy. Yeah, if you're interested, his name is kennethmadden. He's a great guy. So, okay, now I've talked enough. So there's no right or wrong. There is no right or wrong, of course. So you can say or contribute or ask anything that you want to. And that's what we're here for tonight. So that's it. Can unmute yourself or put something in the chat or raise your hand. Paulette. Kennethmadden. Kennethmadden.
I got a thing to say, Max.
Yeah, Casey, great.
I was talking about, I told you the story about a friend of mine was moving and it was a disastrous situation that just happened to go right.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you know that in the law of attraction, you align your vibration to what you in this new place. It's like the solution appears before. It's not like you have a problem and you put your attention on it. It's like that something happens and there's a solution, but there's no doing this. There's no, it just comes. It's like a place of abundance, and then manifestation happens.
Yeah, for sure. But I want to say this too, that there's no, thank you, Tiffany. So Casey, the idea of a solution is an interesting idea because there are no problems and there's no solutions.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from your experience.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that there's no effort on your part.
Right. And of course, sometimes when I say I or me, I'm not referring to Casey, the character. I'm just
know it's hard.
referring to my viewpoint, separate from Max's eyeballs, my eyeballs instead of yours. Yes. So in that moving experience, everybody else would seem to experience chaos because, quote unquote, these problems came up or whatever. Yeah. And my point of view, things just unfolded, but it was like it's hard to explain. It's like exactly how you said. It was like there's no problems. You know what I mean? That just what happens. But like if I took myself out of the situation and looked at it from a human point of view or another ego point of view or something, it would just
a separated point of view.
It would seem miraculous, but in the moment, it seemed like it was just flow.
Yeah.
but it's it's yeah, how to describe it's like with the law of attraction, you're doing something, but this is doing nothing.
Yeah.
It's just being. So you're just watching the abundance of a manifestation just happening.
Well, you know, in law of attraction, when they teach law of attraction, and remember, law of attraction is living in is operating kind of in the dream state, but law of attraction, you know, as Casey knows, because Casey went through a law of attraction training with me. That's we've known each other for, oh my God, 12, 13, 14 years.
Yeah, quite a while.
A long time. But as we would always teach from, and it's true, law of attraction is happening all the time, no matter if you're aware of it or not. It's just always happening.
Yeah.
So the law of attraction is always happening. So when we think, oh well, we can control it, that's when the separated self gets all like, yeah. But you know, as so many spiritual texts, great spiritual texts, even the Course in Miracles would say, every time a problem has been, this is duality, a problem has been created, the solution has been created at the exact same time. So there is no problem because you have access to a solution immediately.
Makes total sense.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's why on some level, I mean, for me, not understanding, or just having this beingness walking in life, like, oh, well, that's what's going to happen. I'm going on a walk. I'm going to make this. It's just happening. There's no expectation. There's no regret. There's no plan. It just happens. Then you go, okay, I guess that's what's going to happen right now. And many times when no, I'm not going to say that. It's just what happens. It's just what happens. So, but I also was thinking about this the other day because I was thinking about law of attraction a lot with my experience now. Law of attraction, in the way that we know it, is very metaphysical, right? So it's metaphysical, meaning that it's actually physical in the separated state. So there's rules not rules, whatever. There's ways of being in the separated world that don't apply to the absolute at all.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. It is interesting. I keep thinking about, you know, now that this has really been happening for me, you know, I'll tell you my key of my success in, you know, being the law of attraction person, because I've always been able to attract whatever I wanted, basically, is that it was so much about let go. You don't know what you want. Just know it feels good and just let it go. I mean, that's really what and it would always come. The money always comes, free shit always comes. My life is a success because of that. But it has so much to do with letting go of what the character wants.
Right. Yeah, I can understand that. I can totally understand that.
Yeah. And so now that this is happening, this realization and this communication is going on, or whatever is happening, I'm like, how am I going to deal with that? I'm like, no, I'm not going to deal with it. You're actually just stepping more into letting go of it all. And you don't even have to let go because it's not even real anyway.
Yep.
All right. That's so silly. So silly. It's doing nothing to do everything.
Yeah.
But you don't do it.
Yeah. I've been so I say this kind of in a wishy-washy state, that I've been so out of my comfort zone, but it's so comfortable. You know what I mean? I'm like doing things, all kinds of experiences happen in me that are just bizarre and transforming. And at the same time, it's exciting, overwhelming, sometimes confusing, but it feels good. It feels a match. It's nuts. Totally nuts.
I hear you completely. I hear you. The other day I went out with saw old friends I hadn't seen in 20 something years for a brunch, and it was, and my old the character of Max would have had some kind of a niggling like anxiety or haven't seen these people, or but I don't know, you know, there would have been a story. There would have been a story. And I was just so, it was so beautiful. It was so great. There was no story at all. There was no story at all. And it was joyful and it was fun and it was interesting. And it's not like I couldn't have joy and fun and be interesting before, but it wasn't me having it, which was crazy. Of course, they didn't know exactly what was happening, but boy, oh boy, I was like, this is a whole different experience that's happening because I don't have a story about, you know, I used to be like, oh yeah, I used to think that they were this and I was this and da 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 da. You know how you like when you go see people you haven't seen in a long time and you have a story. That's like, there was none of that. It was gone. There was nothing. And it was joyful and it was fun and it was amazing and it was amazing. But it wasn't me having the experience. It was crazy. But it was so great. I know that this this whatever's happening has a complete control. I'm not control. It has complete connection to this because at some point I was thinking about this and some people would be like, "Oh, you're just growing up. You learn to let go of the past." I'm like, "No, it's not that." Because it sounds like that. It's not that. Because it's not me having the experience.
Yeah, there's no Max.
Yeah, because the Max is just like dwindling away. Sometimes I'll feel it and then it'll like be dwindled away, just like the MRI story and whatever. So, hi, Vince. Good to see you.
Oh, Vince is on the line. Awesome.
Yep. Hey, good to see you, Vince. Why can I not see your character as Max with anxiety? What does that mean? Why can I not see your character Max with anxiety? Oh, do you mean, Tiffany, do you mean that you could never oh yeah. Because you don't expect me to have anxiety. Is that what you mean? Perhaps because you're so free now? Yes. Well, I also think that I had a lot of control. That my character controlled a lot, had an image. So I wouldn't let you see that. That's probably why. Could be. Could be. So hello, Casey. So anything that everyone wants to ask or say is totally cool.
I had another strange thing happen to me.
Sure, Case.
I was doing some volunteer work, and I don't keep band-aids on hand because I create that which I defend against.
Then you're gonna get hurt because you're expecting to get cut.
Exactly, you got it.
Like insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a whole thing with insurance with that. Anyway, go ahead.
Exactly.
Although I have it.
Yeah. I cut my finger. And I didn't realize it at first. I pinched it and I was working along, and then there was like paint all over the place. I'm like, what the heck? And then I realized it was coming from my finger. I'm embarrassed to say this. I was like staring at it going, what the? Okay, that's leaking out of me. And there was no story. There was like, gotta rush and do this or that. I was just like,
yeah.
Yeah, that was totally like bizarre. If anybody witnessed it, they're like, what the heck is it? I'm like, okay, I should do something. What should I do? Well, not getting on the floor. Then I realized I had tissues in my right and my left. So I cut my left finger on my left hand, but I wasn't going to reach into my pocket with my bloody hand. So I'm trying to reach from my right hand to my left pocket. Right? It's hard. Jim Carrey can probably do it, but I can't. but I finally stopped it and everything, and I was like, this is bizarre. You know, it was just
Because you were just observing what was happening.
yeah, there was no story, none.
Yeah, you didn't have a story connected to it. Uh-huh. That's so crazy. That is kind of the, I mean, those kind of things are happening to, oh my God, it was another kind of blood thing that happened to me the other day with the toenail. And I was like, literally, I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Oh. I mean, before, I would have been like, get something, get the alcohol. Da, 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 da. And I was like, oh. And I was like, that's a, if I say it long enough, that's just appearing to happen. My toenail is bleeding and falling off. Oh, it's interesting.
Oopsie.
Okay. But I didn't have that thing. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know how this, I mean, who knows what we're really talking about here, but it's kind of like that idea about with kids. When kids get hurt, you cannot be like, oh my God, because they'll be, oh my God, because then there's a whole fear story around it. Then you just go, it's okay, no problem. And they go, oh yeah, no problem. I have a big, huge pump on my head and it's okay. No problem. So this is happening. That's right. Tiffany says, so this is what's happening. There's no character to bring the story anymore. It just doesn't, that habit of the character one to bring the story into everything. It just, for me, has really changed. Even in what I'm doing with my website, what I'm doing with my business, I'm like, in the past, I would have been, but it's not happening anymore. And I don't give a fuck. I don't care. It's all good.
Go with the flow, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So that not giving a fuck, not caring, that really just comes from a total just trust in allowing whatever to unfold to be the best case scenario, or it just doesn't even matter if it's best case scenario.
Well, yeah, it doesn't matter what scenario is. I just trust the scenario. But you know what, Vince, before you said that, I was literally going to go, it seems very good that I got this trust tattoo years ago because, you know, like I keep saying is that I'm not poo-pooing anything that I've learned or done before because I feel like there's been so many pointers, and that ability to trust, I feel like is one of the things that has kind of driven me into this thing. So I think that you're completely right. But it's a trust that, you know, I had to challenge myself with that trust thing. And I went all the way with the trust thing. And now I just trust all the time. And you're right, Vince, what you said, that thing about trusting it's not going to work out the way you want. It's just everything's working itself out the way it's supposed to. That's it. Bottom line. For sure.
Right, because, and the course would say because the entire thing is predetermined and we're just aware of each segment of it as it's coming by, or because then there's that non-doership aspect of it, if that's true.
Yeah, there's the non-doership thing for sure. I'm not exactly sure what you're referencing exactly in the course. I kind of know what you're referencing, but it's the not doing, but it's the, well, I would actually say that it's more of the, because doing can happen, right? So doing can happen, but it's not your impetus is not to do all the time. It's just it's not you anyway. Life is just happening, and it might be doing, it might be not doing, might be, you know, cutting your finger. It might be getting an MRI. It might be, it's just happening. It's not how, it's just happening. Right?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I'll tell you, it's just an easy, it's all easier. It's just all easier. That's what I think.
I had a win this week.
You did?
Yeah, I felt good about being able to forgive myself. I'm very easy to forgive other people, but I kind of, the past character of Casey would oftentimes not forgive himself. Easy to forgive somebody else, but not so much for myself. So what happened is I was leaving a store, and this woman that was there to check your receipt as you leave the store, it was Walmart. I just knew, just by being in her space, I knew something was wrong. And I said, "Are you all right?" And her eyes welted up with tears. And I said, "Do you need a hug?" And she said, "Yes." So I gave her a hug. This is something I would never do to, you know what I mean? It was just one of those spontaneous things. So I gave her a hug. And I knew she was at work and she couldn't, talk about whatever was going on. I said, "Do you go to church?" And she said, "Yeah, I do." I said, "Well, maybe we could talk more at church. Maybe I can meet you at church or something." She said, "Yeah, take down my number." So we exchanged numbers, which is another thing I usually don't do, especially with women, So, so what happened is later on in the day, I text her and she texted me back and she said how great it was to be able to be in touch with somebody, that somebody in the world cared, etc. So I didn't want to reach back to her. I figured I'd let her reach back to me. And after, I don't know, maybe a month, I called her phone number to see if she was all right. And I got her sister, and her sister said that she had passed.
Mm.
Right.
Oh,
So my first thought was, I should have called her earlier. I should have done this, should have done that. I felt so, oh man, I felt really hard.
mm-hmm.
And the sister, her and I were a match immediately. She said, my sister wouldn't have given you her phone number unless she trusted you. And if she trusts you, I trust you, So we had this great conversation. I got to learn more about this other woman and everything. And I got off the phone and I started crying. I released my grief, which was good. But I realized that I was giving myself too hard of a time, that I wasn't, it was a time that was in the past,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to release it. Usually I would just really, beat the shit out of myself and have a good time doing it,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This time I was just able to let it go. And oh, what a blessing that was.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love that. That's really beautiful. And it's like this whole thing is just allowing everything to be what it is, right? So, this whole thing, what an incredible, beautiful blessing to be able to meet that woman, and then she passes, and the story is like, oh God, the self is like, first of all, I should have called her before, like you had any control over her death at all. Hello. No. But the story just keeps going on, like maybe I could have at least had an afternoon of joy with her, or whatever it could have been. The story would have been gone, but it's not. That's just exactly what it was, and it was beautiful for exactly what it was.
Amen.
Exactly what it is, for sure.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep.
I love that. That's a beautiful. I love that. What was the forgiving yourself or not? What? Because you started this about forgiveness.
Yeah, I was able to let the past be the past, and instead of getting tripped up in the story of beating myself up, of what I could have done, should have done, I just saw it as, it was a great moment in time that was great, and it came and it went, and I'm okay with that.
Nice. Beautiful. I love that, Casey. Good for you. Let me just, Tiffany says, and I'm special, so it had to be something I did or didn't do. Oh yeah, I get it. Yeah. Yeah, really. She died because I didn't call her.
There's a song running through my head since my mom passed, and I really just.
Carol, are you talking? Carol? Oh, sorry. Oh, if you're talking, just get closer to the mic because we couldn't hear you.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, just this kind of I think might touch on it, but there's a song that I've been listening to or that I've known, and it's been running through my head ever since my mom passed. And part of the chorus goes, "It's not what I said, it's what I didn't do." And it's like, oh my gosh. It just,
Guilt.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is it guilt? And it's like, no, I did the best I could.
Mm-hmm.
I have to.
Yeah.
I'm learning from everything is that we do the best we can, and whatever we did, it was more than somebody else did, and it was all in love anyway, right? So
Yeah.
I
It's
just,
only love.
it's only love. So I hear that song and I'm like, why are you fixating on this song? But it just makes me appreciate my mom.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
It,
Beautiful.
so the songs that come out and yeah, it just makes me appreciate it and and deal with my dad as I move forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good.
Because it's like, it's not what I said, it's what I didn't do. I didn't really say a lot to her because I think I was afraid of her
Mm-hmm.
and to say something to her.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to show her that I loved her. So
Yeah.
that's what I just have to go with.
Yeah. That's what you gotta go with. That's right. But a lot of times the self takes that and what I didn't do, what I didn't do. There's a whole story. I should have been there better. I should have been better daughter. I should have been better there for that whole guilt thing. It's like, uh, no, no,
The
because that's
song is
not
by
real. It's
Colin
just another
Ray.
story. Just another story. Just another story. I was thinking about forgiveness this week, and I see it all so clearly now. And even the course says you forgive until you don't need to forgive anymore. And I've always kind of known that, and now I'm like, really? It's like I think that while we're in the Course in Miracles is an amazing, amazing template for while we're still in the dream state, for sure, for sure. But when that break happens and that's not working for you anymore, forgiveness has no place because there's literally nothing to forgive. There is nothing to forgive. Everything is exactly as it should be. And you accept everything as it is. But while you can't do that, it teaches you how to do it until you don't have to do it anymore. Say it again, Vince.
Sorry, so a brief second to speak. No, just that forgiveness is what brings you there, and no.
Yeah, it brings you so you realize you don't have to forgive. When you really get forgiveness, you realize there's nothing to forgive. And that's definitely waking up from the dream state, from the separated self. No doubt about it. Because nothing needs to be forgiven, because nothing really is happening. Nothing's happening and everything's happening at the same time. It's also funny to me. I just laugh all the time. It's also funny. Nothing's happening and everything's happening.
I mean, that starts to make sense to me how that paradox actually is true, because if everything is infinite, and I don't know if that's a story or not, but it seems to be what everyone's talking about, then there has to be this paradox, because if it were finite, only if it were finite could there not be a paradox. You know what I mean?
Right. Because listen to this. I was thinking about this today. This is the shit that goes on in me. I was thinking about this today. I was like, the finite can only live in the absolute. The absolute cannot live in the finite.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I was sitting in the park today. It was just like under the trees going, oh yeah. Everything is absolute. There is eternity. There is just everything. And then within that everything is relative and finite. So we we have it backwards. We're like, we think the finite needs to bring the infinite in the absolute into the finite.
Right.
It's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Total reorientation. Now, would you say, like, well, without putting words in your mouth, what would you say if anything, happened to you when you heard, gosh, the Irishman's name? I
Kenneth.
forgot. Kenneth,
Kenneth.
yes. What, if anything, happened to you that shifted, that brought you to this point in your life where you're at this like juncture where you can see it more clear than you had previously?
I was just reading. Go look at I put on my website a non-duality thing today, and I kind of mentioned that. And what happened when I saw him a few months ago, I don't even know, it's like May or something. And when I was like, oh, non-duality, let's listen to that. And he was having a conversation like this, and I was like, oh my God, he is saying everything that I'm experiencing right now. He was articulating it all. And I was like, oh shit, this is exactly what's happening. It was like he was talking my language. Somehow he got it. And then I was like, oh shit. It just felt like and he uses that word and I use that word too. There was a resonance to it immediately, Vince. So I was like, oh, this is it. He's been in this space where I'm just coming in for 15 years or something, but it doesn't matter. He doesn't talk about his personal life much at all, but it doesn't matter. But that's what I felt like. It's like when someone's speaking your language, they're in your tribe, the Vince, when you go, oh shit, this is it. That's all. And then when I've listened to him before, I've gone to a couple of his things. I'm just like, yeah, this is it. This is it. Those are my people. There was a resonance. That's all. Yeah, kind of like home, but it's like just so vast. But what he was at the beginning, especially, it was like he was articulating what I couldn't articulate. And I was like, oh yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. The home feeling. I know, Tiffany. I get that. It's like you just go, he is saying what I'm feeling. And that's exactly what I'm going through. There's definitely differences because his path is different than mine, but there was a commonality going on that I was like, oh yeah, I see that.
So the language he's using, and hearing it and how it's resonating with what's going on inside you, that unlocked this new avenue of expression within yourself, do you feel?
Well, it was
Now you have the language to use it.
Yeah, kind of. It was a confirmation somehow. And it's so weird. I didn't need a confirmation. I didn't think I needed a confirmation. But then when I saw it, I was like, oh, I guess I did need a confirmation to be like, oh, that's how you talk about this. But not exactly, because I don't talk about it the same way he talks about it. But it's similar.
Right.
Yeah.
Through similes.
Similes, exactly. Yeah. I'm really finding that it's like I really look back at, like, I even say this in what I wrote on my website. It's like so many it's the same but it's different. That's exactly right. So many of the things that I learned and I've studied through the hero's journey, through the tarot, through angel experiences, through psychic development, everything that I've worked on for so long. Even my acting, huge part of this whole thing, because it's a character. It's like, oh my God, the whole character, and you're the character, but you're the actor, all that, Vince, I'm seeing how there's a million pointers to this everywhere. It's just that this is what it feels like. I feel like the dam broke. It feels like the dam broke, and it was like, oh, okay. And it was not getting it. Something's changed.
But it's doing something.
And it's still changing.
Yeah, I guess
because it's not like I'm there. You don't feel like you're there. It's more like it's not me. It's still evolving, and I don't know. It's not even evolving. It's hard to explain. Sorry, what did you say, Vince?
Well, there's everything we've learned from in the past. Without using the past, I'm going to try to explain this. All right. So, in each moment that you're learning things, right? You're accumulating knowledge. You kind of generating this bank of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So now, do you think
But
on
that's
some
not what I'm really saying. I feel
well,
like I'm seeing the pointers in all of it. It hasn't been accumulation of it. It's like it's all these things have been saying the exact thing, the same thing. That's what I'm saying. Like they're all
yeah,
saying the same thing.
yeah, I think so. There's two ways to look at that. There's the way, like the course would say, like the Holy Spirit way of looking at that is the fact that it's uniting
Mm-hmm.
and united in its like, you know, like the underlying message is a uniting message. So it's relating in that way. Like all of these ideas, they relate because they're similar. They're speaking about the same thing. So
Mm-hmm.
gosh, I remember I lost where I was going with this, but yeah, I guess just speak, if you may, what that means to you. I don't know. I
Well, I
lost where I
just
was
keep
going with
coming. It's okay. That's okay. It just always, I'm really realizing that there's just within the separated self, within the illusion, there's pointers all over the place. There's pointers. I watched a movie the other day that I was in the movies. And I was like, oh my God, there it is again. And there it is again. There's pointers everywhere. Like I use the Shakespeare thing or the Course in Miracles or, you know, all the work I've done around the tarot. There's all these pointers to this, what's happening. And it's maybe there was an accumulation. I don't know. But
Can I interject?
yeah.
So could it potentially be because of all of this stuff that you know so far, since it's similar and it makes sense and it's all pointing in that one direction, could it be that, or could it be like the truth? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, is this, do you feel like this is the truth, or is this
I don't like using that
more?
word so much anymore. I think the truth indicates that there is the false. So I don't really like that word so much anymore. It doesn't resonate with me anymore.
The reason I ask is because we're all seemingly trying to like understand reality on some level, right? Like, is
Right.
that not what the story
Right.
is? Like, the story is to acquire the understanding of everything.
Right. The search to try to, yeah, is to try. And that's what's the big, huge like game. That's the
Right.
game
So
because there's nothing to understand and there's nothing to get.
exactly. Okay. So there isn't anything that could be understood with this entire thought system. So
Mm-mm.
when, like, what makes you feel or know that
I can't explain
you
it.
got it to some degree where you can even speak about it with others and teach it, in a sense, not teach it like you're a teacher, but
Right.
sharing and, you know, like teaching through example and things like
I don't
that.
even
Like,
know if I am. I mean, it's that's why I'm stumbling through all of this stuff, right? So I'm stumbling through all this stuff because it is something that can't be articulated really, but there's pointers through it all over the place. I'm going to come back to that.
yeah.
I don't know. All I know is that maybe because I am such a creative that has trusted and that's been non-conforming so much of my whole life in my business and my everything, is that it's just like, well, of course, this would just, you'd fall into this. It's just kind of like I fell into it. And I don't know if it is because of all the pointers I know, but I do look back and go, wow, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them with, like I said, with the, but I don't know. But that seems like it's cause and effect, and there is really no cause and effect. So I don't know. I don't know.
And I don't say any of this to challenge you. I'm more so just
No,
trying to
I know.
understand your thought system so I can, like,
Well, you
I guess,
can't.
get on that
You're
level.
not
You
going
know
to be
what I
able to
mean?
understand it. You're not going to be able to understand it. So stop
And
trying to
that's,
understand it.
yeah, there's my, that's the ego just trying to, you know, understand it.
But that's normal for the separated self.
Right.
But
No,
I mean, It's
likes it.
normal. It's completely normal. But
Yeah.
it's something that can't be understood. It's beyond. It's something, and then that sounds like it's beyond. It's bigger. It's not. It's like,
We don't
it's
want it to be an excuse, like an easy cop
yeah.
out to just say, "Oh, you can't have words for it, man." So then there's no way to
No,
explain
it's
it.
not
Like
that
that's
either. It's like I'm trying to think of a good analogy. Here's an analogy. I don't know if this is going to work, but and then we're going to wrap up. Is that if you never spoke a word of Mandarin and you got dumped in the middle of a village in the middle of China, you'd be like, I've got to figure this out.
you'd be using a lot of nonverbal cues, that's for sure.
You'd be, yeah, something else. It's like you'd have to communicate, you'd have to operate very differently. Has anyone here ever been in a place, because I have been in a place where I don't know the language at all, and I'm like, oh God, I'm either going to crumble or I'm going to make this work somehow.
So this is an entirely psychological thing.
Tiffany
Ben.
is in there. Well, I'm trying to use a psychological thing to give you kind of what the experience is. Because it's kind of like speaking Chinese. You're not going to get it. Because I can't even speak it. I can't even speak it. But you know it. That's the other part that I know. You don't know it at all, but you do know it because everyone knows it.
Yeah.
You already know it.
I guess the ego's concern is that do we all, like, in quotes, know it because we genuinely intrinsically know it deep down within
Because
the
that's
self,
all there is.
or do we know it because it's what we learned from the texts we've read and through what other people have read and taught and shared, where it's all coming from a similar
Well, one of the
source?
things I will say is that, and then we're really going to wrap up, is that a pointer to this is that I feel like I've come, almost 48 years back to when I was three years old,
Okay.
to the
that's good.
unconditioned self,
Right.
before the conditioning started really happening. Although my conditioning started happening pretty young, but
And then you
it's
didn't
kind
have
of
the
like
language.
that. And that's why there's a pointer again. It's like there's pointers in a lot of things that are saying stripping away all of the onion, peeling the onion, right? So there's another thing to come back to the truth. But you didn't even have to come back because you always were the 3-year-old. It never went away.
Right. Yeah, you didn't have an understanding of language at 3 years old, so you weren't compartmentalizing any of what you saw. It just is what it is, and so you cry when you don't feel good, and you
Yeah.
laugh when you're feeling joy, and
Yeah.
So we kind of going back to that. Nothing wrong with that, but it seems like this undoing process really is like undoing not language, but it's undoing all of the
In the Course, it says that God is closer than your own breath.
Yeah.
That's another pointer. That's another pointer. So just that's why, people meditate, or they, contemplate
Koans,
your
right?
name. Yeah, koans, And it's like, if, and I like, and the other thing is, it's like, I really don't want to ever use the word God ever again in my life. I just, ugh. It just is such a story. I can't even deal with that fucking word anymore. Sorry. Because it's one of the biggest blocks I see. And so if I just go life, like you've heard me say, Vince, and a lot of you, if I just say life is closer than my own breath, oh, yes, it is. Of course it is. Oh. Boom. Done. Boom. Easy peasy. It's right here. Boom. Easy. Easy peasy. Okay.
It's funny. Matt Kahn, who's another great teacher, he says, I guess it's like his whatever in his own language, but he says you are the breath, which I don't know how literally he means by that, but like it's interesting to think of it like that too. Like you are the breath, because when you stop,
you are.
You can't stop.
Yeah.
You don't stop.
It reminds me of my one of my students who always her favorite phrase for years. One of my not oldest students, but longest students. Her, oh, you know who it is, but we're not going to say it right now, Vince. But who always her favorite phrase is, "God's got my back. God got my back. Got my back." And then I was finally like, "No, God is your back. God is your back." And that is a whole different thing. It's kind of like what you were pointing to, Vince.
Yeah.
Right? So you are the breath. You don't breathe. The breath breathes you. But I'm
Yeah.
fine. Because as long as you say God's got my back or God is da 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 da, there's always that separation. There's no separation. That's such a story. That's just for the masses that need a story to have hope for. That hope is bringing you away from what's happening right now in this moment, all the love that's happening now. God damn it. Oh, all right. Everyone take a big deep breath. Okie dokie. So, what was I gonna say? So if you does anyone want to say anything to wrap up? We'll do our little wrap up session here. You don't have to say anything if you don't to. You can put it in the chat, or you can do whatever. You could do whatever.
I did want to say one thing.
Oh, she speaks.
I couldn't earlier, so I
It's
just
okay.
typed. But
That's okay.
when I remember you first saying the word life, I struggled with it for a minute, and I wondered why I was having certain feelings come up about that. And I really got into the internal question of that, and I realized I needed something to love and show affection to. And then it was such a harsh reality to realize it was because I wasn't loving and showing affection to myself, my life, my experience. I needed something to do. I needed someone to give it to.
You needed a separation.
Yes. And I forget sometimes that I have only known you for a year, because for one, it feels like a lifetime. And for two, it has been such a vast switch in understanding what I already understood, in realizing what was already there. And I wonder, I just had this thought, and it's just is what it is. I wonder if because you were talking about appreciating your trust tattoo, and I was thinking about the work that you might, I wasn't there, just this is my play, the work that you might have been doing at that time with trust and learning about trust, and how you got to the point that you wanted to put it physically on your body. And I wonder if in doing that allows somehow, somewhere, this all to just be what it is, and not have to figure it out, and not have to understand, and not have to question, and not have to do some of the things that I'm releasing that I'm doing. I'll only speak for me, some of the things that I'm trying to not do, because it is what it is. And you're right, I just know. What do you think?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, I said, listen, I don't know if all these things have been prepping me for this, but I do know, like I said earlier, is that when I really in my separated state self, when I really started to apply that freedom of the trust thing, I do feel like that was a big pointer to what happened. So yeah, could be for sure. I think, I don't know. I think it's weird. It's like there's the separated self and then there's the absolute. So in the separated self, there are things that point towards this. And what what I've seen when I've worked with students and I've seen is that trust is a really, really difficult thing to do. But if the separated self, whatever, can start to kind of get the handle of what trust really is, it does catapult you into something new. No doubt. No doubt. Is that kind of what you meant, Tiffany?
Yes, it is. It relieves the suffering of having to figure it out because you have the ability to trust the universe and trust what is and trust that it just is that it is.
Which
And,
goes hand
a
in
lot of
hand with
times we
that.
have to figure it out.
Right, which goes hand in hand with what I said about when I really had that phase of really doing nothing,
Yeah.
of really doing nothing. Because if you really do nothing and then you survive it and you're okay, you can trust. I don't know. It's weird. So, yeah. Thank you, Tiffany. I'm glad you're here and I'm glad to hear your voice. It's good to have you here. I'm going to put the link to my PayPal there. If you'd like to make a donation, I'd really appreciate it. You don't have to, but I would really appreciate that if you feel like you get any value from our work here. We'll be back next Thursday. Oh, that's what I was going to say is that we have a couple, I think somebody texted me or emailed me today, but I think if you want to do Wednesday afternoon Course in Miracles study group, we have 2 spots open. There might be one because I'm getting back to that person. So it's New York at 1 o'clock to 2:30. It's in the afternoon on Wednesday. So if you would like to study Course in Miracles with a great group of people, there's spots there, not on Fridays or Saturdays. Those are full. So let me know. Okay. All right, everybody. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. It was great. Another great talk. Good to see you, everyone. You want to say goodbye?
Thanks.
Thank you and good night.
You're welcome.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody. See
Good to hear
ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Love you.